Okay, let's see where we are now. Let me get my chat back out here. All right, we are back. I guess I should have seen that one coming. So, as I was just speaking with somebody else on Discord, yes, the stream was just taken down because it violated their policy content, which is to say, the use of copyrighted materials. Babylon 5 is owned by Warner Brothers, and while I'm sure that, Straczynski probably would never had a problem with me doing this stream, Warner Brothers is notoriously vicious when it comes to copyrighted stuff, and, yeah. I'm not surprised that they use the automated system to take down pretty much everything. What I can never understand is that I literally got the clips off of YouTube. I mean, literally, I went to YouTube, I looked for the Babylon 5 openers, and then I simply downloaded it straight from the YouTube, and I edited it into a live background to use, and then I put it back up for this. However, those videos are allowed to remain. My stream gets taken down. Make it make sense. See, this is why YouTube is a dying platform. I've said it before about many other things. I'll say it again about this. We're here for a good time, not a long time, because YouTube will not be around for that much longer. After which, I'll probably have to start my own website, and yeah, I'll do it that way. Anyway, though, we're not going to let this stop us. I will need to have a new live background now, because this is just a blank background now. So, if anybody has any ideas or suggestions, I'm open for it. Anyway, we're going to be getting into this. We're going to be doing an overview today about everything that we're going to be doing. We're going to go through all the different things that we have to integrate. Before I do that, I will say hello to everybody who's still in the chat. That would be JP. Hello, JP. It's good to have you here. JP says that was a very fast hammer. Yes, it was. Even I'm surprised by that. Turns out the system does work when they want it to. But that's okay. The weird thing is, like, the live background is only up for like 10% of all of these screens. And JP says, make a crayon art Babylon 5 title card. No, I'm not going to do that. First off, I don't have any crayons. Secondly, I ate all my crayons. Thirdly, no, I'll find something else. Something that looks, professional. Or at least professional adjacent. Alright, so, this way we at least have something. We'll go ahead and we'll get in the, we'll get in our browser and our spreadsheet, because we're going to need both of those. So, there's our spreadsheet. I wonder if I will get a copyright strike for using the logo. I guess we'll find out. And we'll bring in the browser. So, resources that we're going to be using for this. JP says, you ate them. Were you a Marine? No, I wasn't. However, I do have Navy in my blood, and I can tell you, the purple ones taste the best. Alright, so, getting into resources that we're going to be using. This is the most official / unofficial, whatever. This is the Babylon 5 wiki. They call it the Babylon 5 project. This is going to be our primary resource for everything that we need to use. It may not be the only one. I will get information from wherever I have to do this. But this should be sufficient for everything that we want to do. We will also be using the Archive of Nethys. Now, the Archive of Nethys is a third-party source resource document. It has everything for Starfinder. It has everything for Pathfinder. It even has stuff for Pathfinder 2nd Edition, which I have never learned. I will get here eventually, but, you know, definitely not today. Today we're just going to be using the Starfinder stuff. And that's because, well, I mean, it's Babylon 5. It takes place in the future, sci-fi. So, we're going to be doing that. And then, of course, I have a Roll20 map set up just for this, so that if we need to roll some dice, we can do that too. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to jump into this. So, naturally, we need to go through and do an overview of all the things that we need to touch. Now, believe it or not, this should not be a terribly long module, okay? This should be on par, more or less, with Star Trek. Now, what did we have to do for Star Trek? For Star Trek, we had to add races, we had to add some new technologies, you know, phasers, disruptors, photon torpedoes, stuff like that. We had to add the warp system. We had to have a new classification system for all of their ships, especially since we were basing it off of the game Star Trek Online and using that as a constant template. Babylon 5 is going to be very similar to that. In terms of races, we're going to need these. And so let's go ahead and make a column for this. We're going to need... Actually, I'm just going to go ahead and copy this and just say races. So, major races. Minbari. We're going to need those. Minbari are basically going to be our space elves. Okay, if you're not familiar with Babylon 5, they're very hoity-toity and yeah. They have a caste system. We can talk more about it if you really want to. We don't need to go into the lore. Not much anyway, but we can. Actually, now that I think about it, should I make 3 different ability sets for the Minbari to reflect their caste system? There is no real difference. This is not like when we did the Tau, and every Tau caste is physically different from another. Minbari are just Minbari. Now, they do have castes, and usually speaking, if you are warrior caste, you are stronger than pretty much everybody in the religious caste. But that is not because they are inherently stronger. It's just because the religious caste really has no reason to train anything, and the warrior caste spends their time training constantly. So it's less, you know, like a caste system and more like, hey, we put all the jocks over here, we put all the nerds over here, and we put all the socialites over here. So there's really no reason to make them that different, but we could offer some different options. So, Minbari, possible caste system? I don't know. We'll have to look. Next, Centauri. Centauri are very human-like, however, they are not human. Their culture, however, is very much similar to the humans, very similar to like the Baroque period or the Victorian period. JP says keep the Minbari simple, as their tech is the same over all 3. This is true, and believe me, it will be simple. It will be a matter of actually, hold on, because there is an example of this in Starfinder. If we come over here to races in Starfinder, there is a race called the Lashunta. Now, Lashunta, it describes as this. Idealized by many other humanoid races and gifted with innate psychic abilities, Lashunta are at once consummate scholars and enlightened warriors. Does that sound familiar? Divided into two specialized subraces with different abilities and societal roles. The thing is that these are both Lashunta, right here. And it's kind of weird because I got the chat in the way there, but these are both Lashunta. And they're technically two different subspecies, but they look basically the same anyway. And so it says right here, they are dimorphic. All Lashuntas get a +2 bonus to their charisma and character creation. Then, Karasha Lashuntas are muscular, with a +2 strength at character creation. However, they're often brash and unobservant, giving them a -2 wisdom. Damaya Lashuntas are typically clever and well-spoken, with a +2 to intelligence, however somewhat delicate, giving them a -2 constitution. So, if we're looking at, say, the Minbari, we could look at them and say that warriors may get a +2 to strength, because they train, naturally, and then maybe a -2 to charisma, because, let's face it, the warrior caste, they know speaky good. And then we can go on from there. They don't necessarily have to have different racial traits. I mean, all Minbari will have very, very basic racial traits. But we could do that. So, it's an option. JP says, love the Centauri hair fans. Well, that's not actually stats. You can have a hair fan, though, if you want. JPL says, the only difference between the three is how they dress and how often they say in Valen's name. Do I have to actually make Valen? That would be weird. Anyway. No, we're not going to make Valen. It's an option. So we'll possibly get into that. The Centauri, though, like I said, Centauri technology is more advanced than humans, but not drastically so. As a matter of fact, Centauri were the first race that we met, and they proclaimed themselves to be very advanced. However, humanity caught up to the Centauri within, like, 50 years. They were not that advanced. And, you know, humanity is really, really good at advancing. Alright, getting back to races. Humans. Humans. Already done? Because Starfinder already has humans. If we go back here, we have human right here. And frankly, humans are nothing special in Babylon 5. In fact, most races are really well grounded. There are almost no differences between the vast majority of races. If we were to look at the big ones right here. Minbari, Centauri, Human, Narn, Dilgar, and Drakh. Now, Dilgar is going to depend on what time period we play on, because by the time the Babylon 5 series starts, they are extinct. And the Drakh are bad guys, so I don't know that we're playing any of those anyway. However, all of them, they breathe oxygen, they require a relatively warm temperature, they require atmospheric pressure, they all bleed, I mean, they all need food, they're all basically the same. They're just little differences between them. Like, for example, Centauri have 2 hearts. Is it weird? A little bit. However, Centauri also don't have kidneys. We learned this in one of the later episodes because one of the main characters, his secondary heart is failing. Why is that a problem? Because the secondary heart does the same job as the kidneys, and the doctor can repair the primary heart, but not the secondary one because it is simply too intricate. So there's that. All of them are fine. Now, when we get into the League of Non-Aligned Worlds, there are many races here. Some of them more major than others, but they're all considered minor. Abai, Belosian, Brakiri, lots of these. Here's where some of them will get a little bit different, in particular the Gayam. The Gayam are one of a few races who do not breathe oxygen, and so they are required to wear an encounter suit. And the encounter suit, it provides the atmosphere and everything that they need for surviving. However, once you get past their need for a different atmosphere, they are also more or less the same as everyone else. And so there's not going to be a ton of things that we really need to get through when it comes to doing a lot of these races. In fact, it may even be a little difficult for us to actually find something special about most of these races. Just because they are so very, very similar. And I see that PC is in. Hello, PC. It's good to see you here. In fact, if I don't go back here, it's probably not going to update. Yeah, there it goes. I have no idea how to get it so that the chat scrolls reliably. PC says, I thought we had a week left for Pokemon. No, we're not. We do not have a week left for Pokemon. Pokemon is done. We went a little bit longer in the last episode of Pokemon just to make sure that everything got done. But there's nothing left. Pokemon is ready to play test. Which, actually, I didn't plug anything, so if you are enjoying this, if you want to be here, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. It's not my fault entirely for plugging it. I never got the chance to before YouTube killed the stream. But if you're here now and you want to, you can go ahead and subscribe to the channel. You can hit the bell icon, that way you get notified every time the videos come out, which is particularly important today since they did kill the stream and I had to send out a second one. If you know somebody else who's also into Starfinder or Babylon 5, then go ahead and share this with them. Otherwise, you can leave a like on the video. You can do that. You can leave a comment down below. But if you're going to leave a comment down below, might I suggest go ahead and join our Discord. Because, like I just said, the Pokemon module that we just finished, it's ready for playtesting. All it needs now is players, because I can't play it by myself. So, if you want to play Pokemon with us, join the Discord, go to the Behind the Screen channel, let me know what your availability is, and once we have enough players, we'll start a game. Alternately, though, if you want to play Babylon 5, also, go to the Behind the Screen channel, let me know what your availability is. Once this module is done, and we have enough players, we can start a game here too. I will run a game every single day of the week if I have to. That came out wrong. I will run a game every single day of the week if I can. Because I would love to do that. Please, please let me run more games. Okay? Help me to help you. Help me to help you. Anyway, getting back to this. Point is that most of these races are so very, very similar that there's not much to really do. Now, JP had mentioned the Vorlons. They're down here. So they're part of the ancient races. Pretty much everything on this list is going to be non-playable. I will still do statistics for the Vorlons and the Shadows. Okay, I will do those two. Just because they do have such a prominent role. However, this guy right here, he is a single, unique entity, okay? You cannot play one of him because there is only one of him. Similarly, the first ones, as far as we know, they are very, very similar to him. There is either one or only a handful left of each of their particular race. You are not going to get to talk to them, or play as one of them. You might not get to talk to them either. The Walkers of Sigma 957 actually goes in this category. I don't know why they have it separated. So all 3 of these are out. These guys right here, bad guys. Don't know why they're in here. You're not playing one of them. And this, the hand, I don't even know. There are minor races. We will not be including these just because there's almost no information on them at all. So, this is what we're going to be doing. We will be doing major races, the League of Non-Aligned World races, and Vorlons and Shadows. Let's see, JP says that was meant as a response to how similar the species are, and then there's the Vorlon energy type. Fine. PC says up until you start to tire out and mix up the worlds, your tricorder picks up somebody approaching. You pull out a Pokeball and yell, "Green Drazi, I choose you." Well, Green Drazi is a good choice. It's actually super effective against Purple Drazi. If you understood that joke, you are in the right place. Okay, so, going through the list. Going back through the list. Narns. Narn? Again, not much that we have to do for the Narn. They're tougher than humans. They're basically going to be our equivalent of space orcs. However, with much better table manners. Okay? They're going to be like the least intelligent Narn is going to be like the most intelligent orc. But everything else is spot on, because Narn are physically tougher, physically stronger, and depending on the era that we play, the only race without telepaths. Now, that being said, according to the lore, there was a time period when they did have them, and so if we want to play ancient history, then we can have Narn telepaths. Otherwise, though, can't really do it. Then again, we can really do whatever we want. We can go into the future as well and play in an era where they have telepaths again. You know, it's our choice. Dilgar. I'm going to put him on the list with a question mark, because I don't know if I'm going to bother doing them or not. And then, of course, like I said, the Drakh, bad guys. There's almost no reason why we would be playing them. I will probably do that one on my own in the background because, like I said, they're going to be bad guys. Now, the League Worlds. These guys are not going to get a whole lot of detail, but I'm going to add them anyway. So the Abai, the Balosian, the Brakiri, Cascor. These guys don't even have an image. It just says they're native to Jeev. They're members of the League of Non-Aligned Worlds. They're physically small, with a somewhat beetle-like appearance, but there's not even a picture of them. The only reference it says here is the Babylon 5 Scripts, Other Voices, Volume 3, The Alien Guide. How about the Abai? I remember these guys from like one episode. They were a sentient humanoid race, one of the younger races. They're governed by the Matriarchate, members of both the League of Non-Aligned Worlds and the Interstellar Alliance. I mean, they did show up several times, but they never really did much of anything. PC says, or you just find the pill that Jakar found. That's in terms of them being a telepath. So it is true. The Narn do still have the capacity for telepathy. It's just never been strong enough. Again, it's going to depend on what era that we want to play in, and we can make decisions there. JP says, thinking pre or post Shadow War, this will inform more of the universe. Well, see, that's the thing about what we're building here. I am not building a module to be played in a specific era. I am building a module to play in this specific universe. And then we can adjust for era by simply including or excluding certain races. So if we wanted to play during the last Shadow War, pretty much everything is on the table except for the Vorlons in the Shadows. Okay, you can't play those, but you can play pretty much everybody else. If, however, we wanted to go back and play during the previous Shadow War, we can include things like the Dilgar, because I believe they were there. We would exclude humanity, because the last Shadow War was 1,000 years ago. Now, since Babylon 5 takes place in the year 2260 and the, surrounding years, that means that the previous Shadow War would have been, per Earth years, 1260. And the year 1260, I believe, would have been the European Middle Ages, if I remember my history correctly. We were just that far away, okay, from being part of the war. I mean, we were going to have starships any day now. But still, we didn't quite make it. So, we know that the Narn were there, we know the Centauri were there, we know the Minbari were there, we can assume the Dilgar were probably there as well, and most of the non-aligned worlds were probably there too. Now, which ones were and weren't, I don't know. However, we don't necessarily have to be like 100% accurate. If I make stats for the non-aligned worlds, we should be more or less able to use them. PC says, I want to play a Vorlon, but not a Vorlon. Just somebody hiding who found an abandoned encounter suit, and now just speaks mysteriously and pretends to be a Vorlon. I mean, if that's the character you want to run with, then we can run with it. Okay, so these guys are going to get to stay. I'm not going to include the Cascor just because they basically don't exist. And maybe that's a bit biased, but I'm not doing it. Next, Drazi. Drazi have lots of stuff that we know about them, and so fine. The Gayam, I love the Gayam. They get to stay too. The Grom, the Her, and the Hayak. So Grom, I spelled that wrong. The Her and the Hayak. We'll include those, and I may, as we're going through these, strip some of these out. Like, if I go to do one of these races and I find that there's not enough information for me to use, if basically the only thing that I can do is make them human, because there's nothing else to do with them, I'm deleting them. Okay? The Iksha. The Lort. And the Markab. Now, interestingly, the Markab are going to be a little bit weird, because the Markab in Season 2 of the television series go extinct by a disease. So the Markab will be one of those races where, if they're playable, it will be dependent on what time period. It is technically possible that we could play, or I could have a player who is a one-off Markab who maybe missed it. However, per the lore, when the Markab started dying, they pulled together all into one place, knowing full well that the disease would kill them all, and it basically turned into a civilizational suicide. So, again, it'll depend on what we want to do with them. The Antine. we may not do them because I actually know who they are. They literally show up in one episode, and the only information that we have about them is a little biological data on them and some stuff about their culture. And when I say a little bit, very, very little that we know about their biology, it's because the episode centered around a child with a disease, which was easily curable by with modern medicine. However, it required medical procedures that were against their culture, and so it basically turned into a whole reference to the who would it be? Like it's the Jehovah's Witnesses who are not allowed to like donate blood or have surgery, right? I think that's them. They're basically kind of like the space Jehovah's Witnesses. Except they don't knock on your door at 6 o'clock in the morning. As far as I know, we didn't get that much information. They might. They might. JP says I like the Mind Flayers. Well, that's a reference to the next one. Those are the Pakmara. Now, the Pakmara are not actually Mind Flayers. They are carrion eaters. They literally only eat something if it is already dead. However, they will eat everything so long as it is dead. They will eat a dead cat, they will eat a dead dog, they will eat a dead deer, they will eat a dead you. As long as it's dead, they'll eat it. The Yolu, I do not even know who those guys are. That's a new one on me. And I thought I was pretty knowledgeable about this. And the Vree. The Vree, I do believe, are only in one episode for like one scene, and it's a joke. However, I like them. They're going on the list. Alright, now, getting into the ancient races, there's also going to be the Vorlons and the Shadows, because, I mean, I gotta have stats for them. They're important. But like I said, everybody else on that list, they're not getting included. Alright, so that takes care of races. And again, there's minor races down here, but I'm not even touching these. As it is, like I said, the Vree down here, if I look at this, one of the younger races, member of the League of Nine Worlds and later the Interstellar Alliance, biology, relatively small human beings, large black eyes, bulbous heads, smooth hairless skin. Despite their light frame, they are very tough. Their bodies are entirely supported by cartilage and muscle. They appear similar to, but distinct from, both the Strebe and the Shadow Surgeons, two races that serve the Shadows. We have some information on their society. However, references. The official guide to Babylon 5 CD, and 2 episodes, Grail and Survivors. That's it. Okay? That's the only resources. We have it in the scripts, which, you know, is just, it's the scripts, and the official guidebook, which is listed twice. Is there enough information for me to even work with here? I don't know. And like I said, their most prominent showing on screen is literally this one. And it's a joke. It's literally in the courtroom on Babylon 5, where one person is in civil court with this Vree, accusing his grandfather of abducting the human's grandfather from Earth like some 200 years ago. Which is why their entire text looks like crop circles. That's it. What am I supposed to do with that? I don't know. Alright, so that is going to be that. Now, as for other things, locations. Now, I do know that JP had made mention of a planetary generator early on. I have a planetary generator. I have a very good planetary generator. I could use that generator to go through and generate the the character profiles for every single one of these planets. I don't know if I need to, but I could. I'm going to go ahead and put this on the list. I'm going to copy this over here. I'm going to say locations, planet profiles, maybe station profiles. And on here, they have listed hyperspace. We will get to hyperspace. I've had some time to think about exactly what do I want to do with hyperspace. I have ideas, but we're not there yet. But we'll leave that as a question mark for right now, because I don't know if that's something we want to spend time doing. You let me know in the chat. Would you like to go through and actually build the profiles for these planets? I mean, they're going to get done regardless. The thing is just going to be, do you want to sit down and do it together? PC says, I think the planetary generator is technically one of the planet, or is technically the one planet that Babylon 5 orbits. No, it doesn't generate anything, but it is special. JP says, I'm totally playing Avri. The lore says they are dedicated practical jokers, hence abductions and butt probes. Alright, I guess I need to add Vri. I have at least one player who desperately wants to be Avri. Problem is, I don't think that they have a translatable speech. Hence why he's using a piece of paper with a circle on it. Okay, so next is going to be ships. And oh my goodness, I am so looking forward to the ships. So, ships. Now, when it comes to ships, there are a lot of them. These are their trending pages. However, if I come down here and go to the list of ship classes, PC says, a funny campaign idea, one where we all play as Zathras. No. Just no. Absolutely no. 100% no. I will veto that idea every single time. I don't care how many of them are left. You are not all going to play Zathras. Alright, so, starship classes, when we get here. Here's what we're going to be doing. So, when we go to play the game, you will be able to build your own ship. Okay? I am not going to force you into a ship. I am not going to tell you what you must play, and I am not going to build it for you. You are going to be allowed to build your own ship. Mostly, but almost expressly, because you're not going to be commanding one of these ships. Now, you could end up in command of a ship, I suppose, depending on what you did. However, in general, you will not be able to command one of these ships just because you're not going to be able to. They're too big. However, I do need to build them, which is going to be fun, because I like building ships. And so, the Centauri have, looks like 3 of them here. One of these is the Primus class liner, though. There's not much I need to do with that, because it's not a combat ship, but we can. The Drakh, we don't need to do those because we're not playing as Drakh. Okay? We're not playing as Drakh. Earth Alliance, and this is one of the things where I actually thought this would be possible, because the Earth Alliance has this many ships. However, the Condor class is a transport. I don't really need to do a thing for that. It's a transport. If you get shot at in a transport, you're probably going to die. I mean, I hate to be that person, but you're probably going to die. The same thing with the Explorer class ship. Are Explorer class ships really cool? Yes, they are. It's not a combat vessel, though. It does have some defensive craft. It does have some defensive turrets, but it's enormous. It has crews of thousands, and no, it's just no. So, really, skipping the Advanced Omega, for reasons that we'll discuss later, we would need a Hyperion, a Nova, an Olympus, an Omega, and a Warlock. We can build 5 ships. It'll be easy. Psychors are just similar variants of those. The Interstellar Alliance has the White Star, the Valen class, the Infali type warship, and the Destroyer class White Star, which is just a White Star with bigger guns. Then we get into the League worlds, and look at this. Like, when I talk about how we need to include the races, these are all of the races where we actually see one of their ships on screen. Quite frankly, if we don't have a ship for it, do we need to include them as a race? Because if we don't have a ship for them, then it's going to be really, really difficult for us to assume that they are a spacefaring and... How do I want to phrase this? They're not influential enough. Okay, because... And I need to make sure that I phrase this the right way. We have an entire list here of races. Okay, we have this whole list of non-aligned worlds right here. Okay, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 of these non-aligned races. Okay, if we looked at the ships, there is 1, 2, 3, because the Drazi have 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, because the Vree have 2, 9 ships. And these are all combat ships, I believe. I mean, except the Markab one is a transport. Okay, maybe we scratch that one off, so that makes 8. Yeah. So that leaves 8. 8 of, like, the 14 or whatever. That means that the other races may not actually have warships. Their ships may be relegated to shuttles, transports, things of that nature. They do not have the power to be influential, they just kind of exist. Maybe they have decent economies and they trade on the galactic level, but that's the highest extent of what they do. And so we might use this to trim them out. And JP says, also the Vree are the ones with the classic saucer ships. Their differences are how big of a saucer and how many flashy lights they have. I'm totally locked in here. That's fine. You're allowed to be locked in here, okay? When we get there, you can totally play a Vree. But yeah, I am very tempted to just use this list to trim things. Oh, and since we're here and we can look at it, there's the Zill class cruiser. It is a flying saucer. There's also this one. I think we only get to see it like once. But, you know, whatever. It's still there. So we'll go ahead and look at that. The Minbari Federation has the Charlene class warcruiser. I think they look like angelfish. I mean, you tell me. What do you think of when you look at that ship? I think it looks like an angelfish. That's the way I always remembered them when I saw the show. I mean, yes, an angelfish only has one fin in the bottom, but yeah, whatever. It's a spaceship. I think it looks like an angelfish. The Liara type attack ship, which that's not even a very good picture. What is this even from? Oh, it's from The Legend of the Rangers, which was a one-off movie. which means that it was only ever shown once and that was it. So that ship may not even make it in. And a cruiser from the Shadow War. Right, this was the precursor to the Charling class. We can do one for that, but honestly, the Charling class stats should work for both. The Narn regime has their own heavy cruisers. The Shadows have their own ships. The Vorlons have their own ships, and then there's other races. PC had mentioned, what about that one pirate ship that was just a core surrounded by fighters? Now, the thing about that is that ship was not really... words. What words do I want to use for this? It's not a particularly mass-produced ship. And let me see if I can find an appropriate parallel here. We're not talking about necessarily countries here. We're talking about, like, entire worlds. And on Earth, we have multiple nations and we have multiple militaries. If you were to look at the world's militaries and put every single military asset that we have together, an alien looking in would look at us and they would say, well, the primary arsenal of Earth is going to be Nimitz carriers. It is going to be I don't actually know the names of all the ships, but it's going to be basically American carriers, American frigates, American destroyers, things like that. And it'll be followed up shortly thereafter by things like Chinese frigates and Chinese destroyers and Russian destroyers and stuff like that. But the American carriers, the American frigates, the American cruisers, the American destroyers, those are going to be these. Okay? These right here under the Earth Alliance. Okay? The Hyperion, the Nova, the Olympus, the Omega, the Warlock. Okay? That is going to be the American Navy. But that does not mean that all of those other ships do not exist. So the one pirate ship that was a really big deal in Season 1, that was an actual carrier vessel. Okay, it was a carrier vessel, it carried raider fighters, and it was jump capable and everything else. That would be the equivalent of, say, a Chinese carrier. Is it mass-produced? Technically. In far fewer numbers. Is it a legitimate carrier? It sure is. Is it necessarily inferior to the other ones? Yes, it is. However, that gulf is not quite as big as you would think. I mean, it is still a fully functional carrier, and it should be respected as that. Would it win in a fight? No, it really wouldn't. But it should still be respected. And so that's approximately where the pirate carrier is going to fall in. It will be a ship, but I'm not going to make a specific character sheet for it, just because it is not going to be mass-produced in enough numbers to need the representation. Whereas, if you were to come across an Earth fleet in space, it would be primarily consisting of these ships. And so I would really need to have stats for all of those. So we'll go through and we'll do these. And if we do all of these, it's going to be a total of about, I don't know, 2, 5 is 7... what even is a Valen class cruiser? I don't remember this. Oh, right, because we only ever really saw it in one scene. there's not enough information on that. So 7, the White Star makes 8. The League of Non-Aligned Worlds is going to be another 8, so that's like 16. The Charlene class warcruiser makes like 17. 1 or 2 from the Narn regime is going to be like 19. Some Vorlon ships, mostly just their cruiser. That makes about 20. And then these, the Raider Battle Wagon is the one that PC was talking about. That's the ship that is literally just a core ship with a jump drive, and then all the Raider vessels are attached to the outside. So if you were on this ship, and see, can I bring it up a little bit more? I can bring it up a little bit more. You literally access the fighter craft by coming down the attachments, and then it just detaches from the outside and flies forward. But again, we don't really need that. As a matter of fact, I'm looking at the other races and organizations here. If we're gonna do the Dilgar, we may want to do the Dilgar Warcruiser. Again, it may never come up, but if we're gonna do the Dilgar, we'll have to do one of their ships. Other than that, there's really nothing over here that we need to do. There's a Strebe cruiser over here, but I mean, we're not even doing them. So, yeah, then there's fighters. We do need fighters, actually. So the Centauri has their Sentry-class fighter. The Earth Alliance has Star Furies. We will do Star Furies. The Minbari have their Nile-class fighter, which is pretty cool. The Narn have a Frazzi-class fighter. And the Drazi have their Sky Serpent. That's pretty much it. The Vorlons and Shadows have their own fighters as well. They're basically just like smaller versions of their previous ships. But yeah, I mean, that's gonna be pretty much it for ships. We'll go through them. I'm just gonna write on here, ships. Use the list of ships. Okay, so we're gonna do that. Now, all the things that we're going to need is going to be hyperspace. Okay, we need to have stuff for hyperspace. Now, interestingly, I kind of already have rules for hyperspace, because hyperspace in Babylon 5 and the Drift in Starfinder are very, very similar. So let me just go over hyperspace really quickly here. And there's even a page for this, so I'll go back to it. If you're familiar with, like, Star Trek, in Star Trek or Star Wars, when people go to faster than light, they just punch the buttons and they go. And they're going faster than light right now. And the only thing that really matters to them is how much faster can you go. In hyperspace, you can go, or in Star Wars rather, you can go to hyperspace, and if you're talking about like the Millennium Falcon, and the Millennium Falcon is known as a very, very impressive ship. Impressive for its speed. In episode 4, when Han Solo is talking about his ship, he mentions that the Millennium Falcon will do 0.1 past light speed, okay? That is C, okay? The integer for light speed, that is C 1.1. Now, to put that in context, and I'm actually going to show off my my Star Trek system here. So prepare yourselves, because this is gonna get this is gonna get ugly. Okay, we are now looking at my Star Trek module. And the reason why we're looking at the Star Trek module, we're coming back to this, is because right down here under the warp cores, I have the actual speeds. So, warp 1. In order to even qualify as traveling at warp, you have to be going light speed, okay? You have to cross that barrier to be traveling at the same speed as a photon in a vacuum. So warp 1 is literally 1c. Now, of course, we travel a certain number of light years a day just because we're playing a game, and if we were actually doing this like per year, oh my goodness, it would be taking years to go anywhere still. But it's fine. At warp 2, and this is the actual scale in Star Trek. I had to do extensive research to find these numbers, but I did it. Warp 2 is 10 light years, so 10 times the speed of light. Warp 3 is 39 times the speed of light. Warp 4 is 102. Warp 5 is 214. Warp 6 is 392. Warp 7 is 656, Warp 8, 1024, and Warp 9 is 1,516 times the speed of light. And then it can ramp up even faster to the absolute ridiculous transwarp barrier, which is 21,400 times the speed of light. Star Trek kinda goes ballistic when it comes to speed. But then again, they also don't really care that much. The actual rule for warp speed is the speed of plot. Okay? It takes exactly the amount of time to get there as it takes. Unfortunately, that doesn't really work in a world where you need rulers. So I had to do a lot of research to make that work. Now, JP says these warp speeds are accurate per the TNG era. Yes, they are. And also, I don't use mushroom drives because that's stupid. So, that's what we've got there. However, Babylon 5 is completely different. So, now that I'm back on the right spreadsheet, the way Babylon 5 works is that you operate using jump gates or jump engines. Now, what does that mean? Let's talk about that for just a moment. So it says, hyperspace is an alternate dimension which is used for interstellar travel between locations that would otherwise take longer to travel in normal space. The entire dimension appears as a stormy environment that has a constant red hue. Now, hyperspace travel. First off, jump points. Transit between normal space and hyperspace occurs through the use of a jump point. A jump point is a large energized vortex that punches a hole between dimensions and allows objects to pass from one side to the other. To do this, it requires a huge amount of energy, so most hyperspace travel is achieved via a jump gate. Those starships can meet the energy requirements that meet the energy requirements can generate their own jump points with the use of an onboard jump engine. Now, this is important enough that it is a major plot point in multiple episodes along the way. It's what made the White Star such an absolute menace because it was the smallest ship yet to be able to make a jump point. And the fact of the matter is that being able to make your own jump point is incredibly useful from a strategic purpose. If you are not capable of making your own jump point, if you're reliant on jump gates, then if somebody else can make a jump point, then fine. I mean, they can just open a jump point and leave you behind. Similarly, if you are caught in hyperspace and they jump to normal space, you can be lost in hyperspace. And if you are lost in hyperspace, you are never, ever found again. Becoming lost in hyperspace is basically going to be a TPK. That is total party kill. And I say that not because I'm trying to really be mean as a GM. However, this is the lore of the series. If you are lost in hyperspace, you drift. And if you drift, there are no landmarks. You will never be found again. It's at that point that we basically just start rolling for starvation. And eventually your characters will just die. Now, jump points are strictly one way. I've never seen anybody try to go the wrong way through a warp or a jump point. I have no idea what happens, but we will be enforcing that. You can only go one way through a gate. I will have to make sure that I have a token to show what direction the gate is going, but that should not be hard. There's a lot of stuff here. There's a lot of stuff about beacons, so we will have basically 2 maps to work with. Maybe, I'm not sure. You will travel from beacon to beacon. And so long as you have a lock on a beacon, you will not need to do like any kind of navigation. The thing about this, though, is that it does not actually specify how fast hyperspace travel is. It doesn't do it. Now, very similar to Star Trek and what we just discussed, hyperspace travel in Babylon 5 basically is the speed of plot. It takes however long it takes to get from point A to point B. And while that is fine, that's just dandy and everything, we need to do better. So I have some ideas. So hyperspace is going to be an alternate dimension. Can I spell that right? Alternate dimension. It's going to require all the jump point rules. And it is going to be a speed multiplier. Okay? And when I say speed multiplier, I mean, if anybody has played Minecraft before, Minecraft has its own alternate dimension called the Nether. Now, when you go to the Nether, you have to build yourself a portal. Sound familiar? You go to the Nether, and you're basically underneath the world. It's basically hell. In every sense of the word. I hate the Nether. But, while you are in the Nether, there is a multiplier in effect. It keeps track of your position inside the Nether, and it keeps track of your position inside the overworld. And every block that you travel in the Nether is 8 blocks in the overworld. So, if you go to the Nether and you walk 1 block and build another portal, you will move 8 spaces. In fact, I don't even think, it may not even register that, because I think if you're in the same chunk, and every chunk is like 16 by 16, if you're in the same chunk, I think it just diverts you back to the same portal. But if you were to travel 80 blocks, well, no, not that, because that'd be a weird number. If you were to travel 100 blocks, you would then travel 800 blocks once you come back to the surface, which makes it great for long-distance traveling. If you want to get away from home and go explore somewhere new, you can do that. We're going to be doing the same thing with hyperspace. I already have some ideas, and the ideas that I have are simply that we'll be able to use the speed of your conventional thrusters as the basis for the multiplier. So I don't know if we're going to be doing like a direct like hex to light year translation, or if it'll be a times 10 or a times 100. I'm not sure. But either way, it's going to be a multiplier of some kind. So that's going to be hyperspace. And if we have time today, maybe I'll go over that because I think it's going to be a pretty simple system. And lastly, that I can think of is we're going to need to have a system for telepaths. Every single species, barring a couple, have telepaths. And can I find that on here anywhere? Actually, yes, I can. Featured article, Bester. Bester is a telepath. So I should be able to find the word telepath in here somewhere. He's part of the Psy Corps, level 12 investigations, blah, blah, blah. Wait, are telepaths do they not even get, like, an entry? No, here we go, telepaths. Okay, telepaths. So a telepath, also known as a teep among humans, or a not freaky or mindwalker among the Narn, is a being with the ability to read and influence the minds of other life forms. So, natural telepaths, while it is rare, it is known in some races to naturally develop telepathic abilities. However, due to the process of evolution through natural selection, any species that does so cannot then go on to develop a sentient intelligence. That's kind of weird. The reason behind this is that the emergence of intelligence in species is, under usual circumstances, the result of a race that has become adept at generalized abilities rather than specializing. They make up for a lack of natural strength, speed, or built-in weaponry, like that of a predator, with a tendency towards curiosity and tool use, which they pass on to their descendants, who become better tool users, and so on. As a result of this adaptability, further biological evolution is mostly around the use of tools. By this point, the race would be actively altering their environment to suit them. Pounding and cooking food they couldn't normally chew and digest, building weapons to hunt and kill, etc., etc. When a creature naturally develops telepathic abilities through natural selection or mutation, it cannot then become sentient, as a natural telepath has no need to develop generalized tool use. If a predator can be telepathically sensed and then convinced its would-be prey is not there, then there is no need to develop weapons. And if the prey can be sensed and convinced to come to the predator, then there's no need to develop hunting skills. The same way that predators would evolve teeth, claws, and venom, natural telepaths also become committed to specialization and can never achieve sentience. That's interesting. I did not know that was written into the lore, but it does make sense. I love the logic of it. Now, obviously, all of our telepaths are going to be sentients. And they're not, in case you didn't pick up on that, they're not natural. We don't need to get into that, okay? Not going to spoil anything about that here, but there's a lot to that story. Oh, by the way, I suppose I should point out that there will be spoilers in this. I mean, I know I've been going for like an hour now, but there are going to be spoilers. So if you don't want to be spoiled on any of this, I would highly suggest going and watching Babylon 5 first, then come back and watch these. Otherwise, though, yeah, there's going to be spoilers. Let's see. JP says, size scales. PC says, was driving. Regarding hyperspace, look up a game called Star Control 2. It's hyperspace system, and yet another one after called Quasi-Space. I'll look it up later. I'm not going to look it up on the stream. But I am interested. PC says, it's not a speed multiplier, it is a distance divider. Okay, that is interesting. They both achieve roughly the same thing, it's just different math. Now, if there is a reason why you think that that one might be better, go ahead and let me know. But I see both of them achieving the same result. So, yeah, let me know that one. Anyway, getting back to telepaths for a moment, there's lots of stuff here about telepaths. And even right here, different races have different attitudes towards telepaths. This is just talking about how they are treated. The humans have the Psychor, the Membari. They like their telepaths. They're actually nice to them. The Centauri have an entire telepath guild. The Abai possess telepathic abilities in very limited empathic senses. The Narn used to have them, however, they all got wiped out. And then telepathic abilities. So, though an individual's telepathic ability varies depending on their training and strength of their innate gift, most are able to pick up on at least stray surface thoughts of others. Strong emotions are particularly hard to ignore. In crowded areas, this often devolves into a deafening chatter, and a teep must learn how to block it out. Psychor training on this often employs a method where the telepath must repeat little songs and rhymes in their heads, round and round, until their blocks reduce the deafening roar to a background hum. To read surface thoughts or to implant false memories or suggestions requires a scan where the subject's mind is actively contacted. This usually requires line of sight and can often have a surprisingly long range. A telepath of sufficient strength can not only read minds but actively project images and sounds, either memories or imagined images, into the surface thoughts of teeps and mundanes. Psychor terminology refers to these as glyphing and mind casting, and are basic skills of telepathy. Most teeps are able to both send and receive through line of sight, though weaker telepaths such as P1s and 2s either struggle or require physical contact. A trained telepath should be able to distinguish a glyph from reality, though if it is strong enough, or if they work in unison, they can push past even a trained Psychops barriers. So, when it comes to telepaths, we are going to need a scaling system. It's going to be very, very similar to what we did with the Psychers in Warhammer. Now, I don't have that pulled up for reference right now, but what we did with them is, since every single living being in Warhammer 40k has some level of psychic ability, everybody has to roll their character. And so, we're going to do the same thing when it comes to Babylon 5. Playing a telepath is not necessarily going to be a thing that you choose, unless the GM specifically allows it. It will be an added thing that you will roll to see if your character, who is already going to be your chosen species and your chosen profession, also comes away as a telepath. And this way we do two things. Number one, it's fair. Everybody gets the chance to be one. Most people are probably going to be disappointed. Sorry. However, in the event that somebody does become a telepath, it will remove any kind of... And I don't want to make this sound like players are childish, but it will remove any accusations of this character got to be a really powerful telepath and this character is barely a telepath. Everybody will roll on the same table and the dice will determine what you get. It will be fair. And in my experience, being fair goes a lot further than giving people what they want. And I see Sky is in the chat. Hello, Sky. Good to have you here. So, yeah, obviously, if you pick a race that does not have telepaths, like, say, the Narn, we will skip that entirely, but for everybody else, it will simply be roll on the table for telepath. And we'll see what happens. After that, we will need a list of telepath DCs. Telepath abilities and telepath DCs. So, for example, when they were talking about how telepaths can do things like cast things into somebody else's head. They call it glyphing and mind casting. Most are able to send and receive, although weaker telepaths, P1s and P2s, either struggle or require physical contact. So, what we will probably end up doing is we'll have telepath abilities in DCs, which will probably also scale off of the scaling system. I think we will also need to have a physical multiplier, because it's shown that every telepath, while they do have the ability to touch somebody remotely, physical contact amplifies everybody's abilities. Just across the board, everyone. So we'll do that. Now, as far as the telepath abilities go, we'll have to wait until we really get into that. Now, with that being done, we've got races, locations, maybe. I don't know if we're going to do locations or not. That's really kind of up to you. The list of ships, hyperspace travel, and telepaths. Is there anything else that you think that we're missing? Because we already have a lot of the rules for, like, basic stuff, like traveling and all that. We have the rules for that. I guess there is technically some gear that we might want to add. I don't know if we want to spend a lot of time on it. On the Babylon 5 station, they use what are called links. Now, links are just comm devices. The only thing that makes a link specifically unique is two things. And one of them is barely worth mentioning. So the thing about the link is that it does stick to the back of your hand, and it sticks on the back of your hand by a bioorganic polymer. Now that's cool, and that's nice little world building, but is that necessary? I can't even say that the link is hands-free, because while it is stuck to the back of your hand, you have to push the button with your free hand. It's technically one-handed, but it has to be used by your other hand. Which means it's not entirely one, it's like 1.5-handed. And it is genetically coded to whoever is supposed to be using it. If you are not the right person for the link doesn't work. However, I mean, you explain to me the difference between having a genetically coded link and just having a cell phone with a passcode on it. Both of them are communications devices. Both of them require security to access. Technically speaking, you could maybe guess the passcode for a phone, and there's almost no way for you to get past the genetic the genetic security for the link. But even then, we've seen that they've been hacked before. So if you have the technical skills, you can hack into one. So I don't see the need to include those. They're just going to be comm devices. And like I said, I've got those. If I come over here to the Archive of Nephis, go over to Equipment, and Technological Items. If I scroll down a little bit, here we go, comm units. Personal, system-wide, and unlimited. So a personal comm unit will communicate anywhere on a planet. It is very much like our cell phones now. And I believe it can even do things like take pictures. Let's see. A personal comm unit includes a calculator, a flashlight, which increases the light level 1 step in a 15-foot cone, and several entertainment options, including games and access to any local infospheres. You can upgrade a personal comm unit to function as some other devices, such as full computers or scanners, by spending credits equal to 110% of the device's additional price. And that is a personal comm unit. The system-wide would allow you to contact any planet in a system, and unlimited allows you to contact any planet in the galaxy. The unlimited ones are usually, like, really big. Point is, though, that we already have rules for comm devices, and so there you go. The only other thing that I can think of is possibly, very possibly, weapons and armor. Now, for weapons, I don't know where I would find it. I bet if I went through Psycore again, Psycore, Psychops, equipment? No, I don't see it here. Let's see. If I look up a PPG, here we go. So this is the gun that is used the most throughout Babylon 5, the PPG. It is an initialism for phased plasma gun. It fires a bolt of energized superheated helium sheathed in an electromagnetic field propelled by an opposing magnetic field. On impact, the plasma bolt dissipates and discharges its thermal and kinetic energy. Not that helium has a ton of kinetic energy, but hey, whatever. When fired in an oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere, the intense heat of the superheated helium plasma causes a distinct optical distortion as it expands the air around it. It is the sidearm of choice for most space-fighting forces, as the plasma bolt is effective against both organic technology or organic targets and thin metals, but will dissipate quickly when striking denser surfaces. In other words, it's probably not going to punch a hole through your hull. The thing about this, though, is it is a phased plasma pistol. If I come to equipment, and I go to weapons and small arms. Now, this may take a moment, because this usually takes an inordinately long time to load any of these pages in the weapons area, and I don't know why. It does not make sense. One-handed weapons, if I sort them by category, and that's going to take another moment, and then scroll down, scroll, here we go, plasma. Plasma, claw, forked pistol, cavitation pistol, vapor. Alright, this is basically going to be your, this is basically going to be your PPG, a cavitation vapor pistol. Except that one's unwieldy, so actually maybe not. Plasma ring single valve? I don't know. That might be it, actually. So, it does electrical and fire damage. It has a range of 40 feet. It wounds on a critical. It's got 40 charges, but it uses 4 per, so it's only got 10 shots. It's lightweight. This is basically going to be the PPG. And so there's really nothing more that I have to do for this. Technically, there is a larger version of the PPG. I would hesitate to call it a rifle. It's more like a carbine. But it still does the same thing. And so I could go to long arms and look up a plasma long arm and call that a PPG as well. So I don't think that there's anything that I need to do there. I don't think there's any other technology that I really need to worry about. Even when it comes to things like encounter suits, the thing is that if we go to armor and we go to look at all of the different properties of armor in Starfinder, so let's see. A character's class and feats determine what kinds of armor they can wear. Further details are below. So armor proficiency. If you're wearing armor with which you are not proficient, looking at you, PC, you will take a -4 penalty to both your energy armor class and kinetic armor class. A character who is proficient with only light armor can wear heavier armor by effectively selecting the heavy armor proficiency feat. Donning your armor, it takes time. It's not instant. You can't just say, hey, I'm getting into my armor. Light armor takes 4 rounds to properly put on. Heavy armor takes 16 rounds. And power armor is worse. You can try to don the armor quickly. It halves the minimum time. However, it doubles all your penalties. And PC just says, worth it. Hey, up to you. If you want to wear a Vorlon suit, that's fine. I'm not going to stop you, but I am going to make you pay for it. So, armor size, it can be adjusted. You cannot adjust Vorlon armor to fit you. Okay? You just can't. They don't have arms. I mean, they technically kind of have arms. It's weird. Vorlons are weird. But you can't adjust Vorlon armor to fit you. It's not going to work. But here's where we need to get to the actual meat and potatoes. Environmental protections. Space can be an inhospitable place, especially if you're something like a Gaium, with countless dangerous worlds within it. Unless otherwise specified, okay? And this is the important part. Unless otherwise specified, all armors protect you from a range of hazards to ensure that you can survive for at least a few days if you must make emergency repairs to the hull of a starship, explore an alien world, or endure exposure to an environmental breach in a space station. Some armors do this through an environmental field. It's a minor force field specifically attuned to pressure and temperature that does not reduce the damage from attacks, while others can be fully enclosed with helmets and airtight seals. The most common environmental dangers are detailed in the environments page beginning on 394. The point being, though, is I'm going to come down here to breathing and pressure. All armors can facilitate self-contained breathing, protecting you against vacuums, smoke, and thick, thin, and toxic atmospheres, including any airborne poisons or diseases. Self-contained breathing functions underwater and in other liquid environments. This protection allows you to breathe in a corrosive atmosphere to prevent suffocation. However, it is not strong enough to prevent the corrosive atmosphere from dealing acid damage to both you and your armor. Now, a suit of armor with an upgrade that grants acid resistance reduces any acid damage taken from a corrosive atmosphere normally, and any visual impairment from an atmosphere or from an environment such as smoke and water still applies. The point here being is that if we come back here to look at, say, the Gaium, the Gaium are a methane-breathing insectoid race, which is why they have to wear an encounter suit and why they have to live in a special part of the station. They have to live in sealed environment chambers, because if they were to leave them without the suit, they would just simply die. However, it also means that, and you can see one with the helmet on right here, any of the armor that they're wearing here should do the same. So it facilitates self-contained breathing, which means that they can fill it with whatever atmosphere they need. Most races in Starfinder breathe, just regular oxygen, nitrogen atmospheres. But even Starfinder does acknowledge the fact that there are potentially other aliens who will need different environments. So if you want to play a game or something that requires a different atmosphere, you'll need to have an armor. You will need to wear your armor all the time. You will need to keep track of things like, how long can your armor function if you're away from the ship. You'll need to have some kind of place to recharge it, some place where you can exist without it. There's a lot of things that will be kind of a hassle, but any armor will facilitate this, and therefore I do not see the need for us to make a special thing for encounter suits. Any suit that you get will do the job. So I'm struggling to think of any kind of equipment that we would need that is not automatically included in Starfinder. I mean, does anybody else have an idea? Because I don't. That's not the worst thing in the world. I mean, if we're good, we're good. I'll take it. No, I think this is pretty much everything that we have to do for it. This will give us races to play. There are no, professions, I suppose, or classes in Babylon 5 that we need to worry about. So we'll be able to stick with just the actual classes that are in the game as it is. Which means that, if I scroll up here, we will have the choices of biohackers. So you're fascinated by science in all of its many facets. You understand the fundamentals of biology, chemistry, physics, and other disciplines can help you exploit your enemy's weaknesses or bolster your allies. You might be studious and methodical about your research, putting your mind to the limit in search of discovery, or you might be a daring experimenter, improvising concoctions and stumbling upon grand revelations. Either way, you use your knowledge of several fields of scientific study to aid your allies, whether in the thick of battle or crafting the perfect plan. Again, it's great. We see this a lot in the show. The Envoy. You make your way through the universe with a charming smile, quick wit, keen sense of self-preservation, and excel at getting others to do what you want. You could be a trickster, a hustler, a con artist, or you might serve as an actor, ambassador, or business person, paving the way for negotiation through kind words. Through kind words. Let's see, where was I? Oh, or the occasional dirty trick. You are often the group strategist, using your quick wit and tactical acumen to push your friends to greater heights. You may also be skilled in diplomacy, serving as the face for a starship crew, talking your way into restricted systems, or gaining audiences with local politicians or warlords. There's the Evolutionist. So the Envoy, I mean, I would dare say that one of the main characters in Babylon 5 is an Envoy. I would say that would be Delenn. Delenn is absolutely an ambassador. Delenn also has, I would probably say, the vast majority of all the badass moments in the series. Because Delenn is the ambassador who can also show up with warships. Nobody else can do that. The Evolutionist. Conflict drives innovation. In a strange and dangerous galaxy, you've unlocked unparalleled means to adapt. By embracing mystic tradition, extensive augmentation, deliberate genetic mutation, and relying on other extraordinary means, you transform yourself into a powerful being better suited to achieving your goals. You might adopt characteristics of a ferocious chimera, an undead scion, a cybernetic paragon, or anything in between. Yet your evolution boosts a will of its own. Your abilities fight you for control in a stressful situation, even while providing lethal instincts. An innate weapon, spontaneous weapon adaptations that help you outmaneuver, outwit, outmatch your foes. No matter your niche, you are an adaptable combatant who forges your destiny in flesh, bone, or steel. That one seems a little bit weird, however, We have seen in Babylon 5 that biotech and cybernetics exist. For example, several of the characters in the show have gills. Yes, like a fish. Except that they're not using them to go through water, they use them to simply breathe in other environments. For example, the Vorlons. I don't remember exactly what their environment is, but it is very, very harmful to anybody who breathes oxygen. That being said, you can absolutely get gills that will allow you to breathe that air. Later on, we have seen people who have brain cybernetics, eye cybernetics, hand cybernetics, all kinds of different cybernetics. And so being able to augment yourself, not a big deal. Now, is it the same as this? I don't know. I might have to look at this to determine whether or not this is allowed or not. The mechanic. You're a master of machines, from advanced supercomputers to simple magnetic engines. Understanding how these devices work gives you insight into the world around you, allowing you to make the most of your gear, circumvent hardened defenses, or even take over remote systems. Your programming skill also gives you the ability to create a powerful ally in the form of either an implanted artificial intelligence, which we do see artificial intelligence in the series, or a robotic drone, which can assist you with a variety of tasks. We also see drones. If there's a computer or machine that needs to be fixed, bypassed, or destroyed, you're the first on the scene. Whether you're a skilled scientist, a starship engineer, or a battlefield technician, you're no stranger to combat. But you find it much more reasonable to have your AI or drone do the fighting for you. PC says, technically speaking, Vorlons don't have an environment. The suit itself is a con job, hence my character idea. Actually, technically they do have an environment, we just don't necessarily know what it is. The Vorlons have a homeworld. Nobody's ever been there. Nobody knows exactly what it is, but they do have a native environment. They don't need it anymore. It's incredibly possible that they have the same type of oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere on their planet that most other races do. But since they don't need to breathe anymore... Again, I told you there'd be spoilers in this. So if this is spoiling things for you, it's your fault, not mine. The Mystic. This is one that may actually get removed. I'm going to go ahead and make a column here. I'm going to put it right here, just because I have extra space. Classes. Biohacker is a yes. Envoy is a yes. Evolutionist is a maybe. Mechanic is a yes. Mystic. You understand that what most people call magic is simply an expression of the innate connection between all things, and you intuitively tap into this unseen power to create strange effects. You may conceptualize the source of your magic as divine grace, manipulation of fundamental energy, or an unlocking of psychic potential, but always with the knowledge that you are the conduit channeling forces greater than yourself. Though you may study, you understand that spellcasting, like all of existence, is messy and intuitive. And you specialize in biology and mental systems too complex to be perfectly understood by science. You sense the intangible, and you exploit your bonds with others, whether to bolster them or bend them to your will. I'm going to go ahead and say no, which I already understand that somebody out there is going to say, now wait, hold on a second. So, let me explain. The idea that you are channeling something beyond you is something that is never explicitly shown in the series. It has never been shown. Now, when it said here that, it could be the unlocking of psychic potential, right here, that's fair, okay? And we are going to have psychics. We're going to have telepaths. We may even have telekinetics. Okay, I'm not even sure if we're going to do that or not, because so far every telekinetic has been incredibly unstable. And we only saw it once, but still. They said it themselves. Every telekinetic has been unstable. The Mystic is about channeling forces greater than yourself. And we're not dealing with things greater than ourselves. So I think we're going to go ahead and we're going to skip that one. Let's see. PC says, except that the Vorlons are shown to exist in oxygen or whatever Kosh's room is filled with. Also vaguely recall the space itself in the last episode of the war. Well, actually, that's kind of the thing. They don't need an environment anymore. They can exist anywhere they want. If Kosh wants to be in an oxygen environment, he can be in an oxygen environment. If he wants to be in space, he can be in space. They have passed beyond. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring up my Star Trek module again, because this is going to be useful. Okay, this is my solar system generator. Now, I realize that somebody's going to be saying, wait, solar systems? That's not what we're talking about here. Trust me, it'll make sense. This is the thing that I can use to build literally any planet and any solar system that I want. Now, I will not be using this for Babylon 5, not one-to-one. I will be building a version of it and reusing a great deal of it. However, I'm not going to be necessarily using all the parts. But one thing that I can use is if we come down here to fauna. Okay, right here. So under fauna, I have, at least as best as I could do, I have created a way to seed planets with life based upon their evolution. Now, at the very bottom, I have none. Now, technically, none is a bit of a misnomer. It could be none. It could also be bacterial life. I didn't make a big distinction because nobody is bringing home a pet bacterium. At least not yet. After that, I have aquatic life, because, at least using Earth as an example, and because we haven't found alien life yet, Earth is the only example that I can use. Life showed up in water first, because water gave it the environment. After that, we got insects, I think. After that, we got amphibians, and then reptiles. Although insects, which came first, insects or amphibians? It's really hard to say, because there were insects in the water before there were amphibians, but the amphibians reached the land before the insects did. I think. I'm not positive on this. The only way that I could make this better would be to actually contact an evolutionary paleontologist. And believe me, I'm tempted. Just because I would love to make it perfect. However, moving on. We got amphibians, who still require water. Reptiles, who do not require water. The reptiles gave rise to the avians. The reptiles also gave rise to the mammalians, although that took longer. However, that is the highest level of evolution on Earth. So I had to go in and do a lot of research into various sci-fi genres to figure out what comes next. And this is what I got. Next is post-homeostasis. Now, what does that mean? We as mammals require, in fact, every living thing on the planet requires a homeostatic existence. That is to say, we all have a certain operating range. We need things. We need X amount of air, X amount of water, X amount of food, and X amount of energy. Now, when I say energy, I do mean temperature. Okay? Because if we have too much or too little of those four things, we die. Which, if you think about it, this refers back to the rule of threes, which I quote in almost every survival game that I've ever played on my channel. 3 minutes without air, 3 hours without shelter, 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food. Now that's for humans, but all 4 of those are required for every living thing. A post-homeostatic creature, however, is no longer bound by those. For example, if anybody has either read or watched the series Invincible. Okay, I realize that that's, like way out from what we're talking about here, but the series Invincible, the Viltrumites, particularly Nolan and Mark, because they're the ones that we spend the most time with, they can routinely travel underwater or into space. And the reason why is because their bodies, as Viltrumites, are strong enough to maintain their own internal pressure when they are exposed to a vacuum or the depths of the ocean, and their bodies are capable of creating the oxygen it needs internally. So if they don't have oxygen to breathe, they just simply make it. They are an example of a post-homeostatic species. They do not need an environment. They don't even need input from the environment. They can exist in any environment without any kind of adaptation. So, is that a Vorlon? No, that is not even a Vorlon, because a Viltrumite can still be punched. Okay? A Viltrumite can still be ripped in half, and they are. So that's going to take us to the next one, post-physical. A post-physical creature is something that no longer even requires a physical body or physical environment to exist in. They can exist as a being of pure energy. They can travel as a being of pure energy. Being pure energy, they are no longer bound by things like physics. They are barely constrained by things like gravity. A post-physical being would be able to travel like a photon would, at light speed. They would be able to exploit things like the Heisenberg uncertainty principle to pass through solid matter. They would no longer be bound by any kind of physics, unless they chose to be. And then, of course, we get to the last one, which I reserve for beings like Q, which is post-causality. These are things that are not even bound by time and cause and effect. They can literally violate pretty much every single universal law at will. So, where do the Vorlons fit in? Right there, post-physical. The Vorlons are not gods. However, they are very, very advanced. Not just technologically, but evolutionary. And we see this from the other first ones as well. If I go back to that guy right there. I scrolled up too far. That guy. That guy is post-physical. Okay, he has an energy form. You only see it in his very, very last scene. However, he has an energy form. He chooses to maintain a physical body. But he doesn't need it. He also doesn't need to breathe, he doesn't need to eat, he doesn't need to drink. And we never see him doing any of them. He is, by all means, immortal. He can still be killed, technically, and so can the Vorlons. But, I mean, he is post-physical. That being said, though, he has a home planet somewhere. His physical form is based off of, how he evolved, and the Vorlons similarly have some kind of physical form they can take if they want to. It's just nobody can actually see them for reasons that I'm not going to get into. Okay, so we got that. Now, I'm running a little bit long, but I want to go through the rest of these classes. The Mystic is out, though, because we're not channeling forces from the Great Beyond. So we'll get into the Nanocyte. Your body houses an untold number of nanites, tiny machines that can grant you incredible fortitude, transform into tools, and course across the battlefield to decimate your foes. Your total control of these nanites makes you an adept combatant who can manifest the perfect weapon or tool at a moment's notice, whether your powers stem from an accidental infection, excruciating experiments, voluntary symbiosis. Your nanites grow stronger by the day, and you gradually transform into a being more machine than mortal. I don't recall us ever seeing nanotechnology in Babylon 5. And certainly never to this extent. I think we may have seen it a couple of times in medicine, but we've never seen anybody with this kind of ability. So I think that the Nanocyte is also going to be out. So, the Operative. You're a shadow. You move swiftly, you strike suddenly, and always have an escape plan. You're a consummate professional, and you always get the job done, whether it's scouting the enemy's lines, hunting down criminals, stealing and smuggling items, or assassinating key figures. As an operative, you're skilled in a wide variety of disciplines and specialties, and use speed, mobility, and your quick wits rather than rely on heavy weapons. You excel at the art of surprise, whether it's sniping targets from cover or striking them when their backs are turned. Your cause may be righteous, but you have no problem fighting dirty. Achieving your objective is all that matters. Operatives are in. Operatives are absolutely in. There are so many examples. Precogs. Through some cosmic event, you come to understand the ebb and flow of time to a degree that only a select few can. I'm going to stop it right there because there is only one example of time travel ever in Babylon 5, and even then, only like one example, or maybe a couple examples of people even predicting the future. And even then, the examples of the future being predicted were not actually predicting time. They were examples of people just being smart, or knowing what the consequences would be to a particular action. And JP accurately says Valen. Yes, Valen and Babylon 4. However, that is literally the only instance that we ever saw with time travel. And it was not explained, it was not elaborated on, it had something to do with the Great Machine, and it was never, ever spoken of again. So for all intents and purposes, time travel doesn't exist. And frankly, it was maybe a mistake to even put it in there. Because now we know that it does exist, and either nobody knows how to use it, which includes the Vorlons and the Shadows, or nobody is dumb enough to use it. Again, including the Vorlons and the Shadows. I'm not sure, but either way, I'm not including time stuff. So the precog is out. Now, the Solarian. These stars guide the planets with gravity, create light with light and heat, and utterly consume worlds in supernovas and black holes. You understand that these acts of creation and destruction are not opposites, but rather two parts of a natural dualistic cycle. You seek to be an agent of that cycle. An enlightened warrior with the ability to manipulate the forces of the stars themselves, constantly accompanied by a mote of fundamental energy, or entropy. You can shape this essence in combat to create weapons and armor of gleaming stellar light or pure devouring darkness. Whether you apprenticed in a temple or came to your powers through personal revelation, you recognize yourself as part of an ancient tradition, a force of preservation and annihilation. Solarians are basically paladins. Except since there are no gods, they are paladins of the sun or the supernova, the black hole. Solarians are out. Now, soldiers. Soldiers are automatically in. I don't even really need to read this, but I will. But soldiers are in. Conflict is an inevitable result of life. On every world that harbors complex living organisms, creatures battle one another for dominance, resources, and territory, or ideals. Whether you've taken up arms to protect others, win glory, exact revenge, or simply earn a living, you are the perfect embodiment of this truth. You are an expert at combat in all types, but tend to prefer heavy armor and weapons. The bigger, the better. You may be a career soldier, a fresh mercenary, or a lone wolf who rejects authority, but whether rushing in for hand-to-hand combat or firing tactical barrages, you're a consummate warrior, never hesitating to put yourself in line of fire to protect your friends. JP says, wouldn't the Wardens be their paladins? I don't even know. What do you mean the Wardens? Who are the Wardens? I don't remember them. Either way, even if that were true, there's nobody in Babylon 5 who commands a little piece of the sun. So it's still not going to be the same. So, no, Solarians are still out. Soldiers are in, though. Technomancer. It's in. Okay? I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna preload that one, preface that one. It's in. So, to the uninitiated, magic and technology are simply or completely unrelated, but you know that there are more correlations between the two than most suspect. Magic and technology are just tools, and when combined into one discipline, called technomancy, they can be far more powerful than one or the other on its own. You utilize tech to empower, harness, and manipulate magic, and you wield magic to augment, control, and modify technology. You are an expert at hacking the underlying structure of the universe itself, bending the laws of science and nature to your will. Your technomancy, which is gained from scientific study and experimentation, manipulates the physical world, weaves illusions, and allows you to peer through time and space, and if necessary, can blast a foe into atoms. Yes, technomancers are in. They are in because they are a part of, they are absolutely a part of the lore. They do exactly what the Technomancer says in Starfinder. They're also like one of my favorite people in the entire series. JP says, sorry, meant there, I was thinking of the Rangers. So here's the thing. Are the Rangers paladins? By the definition, yes. Yes, they are. However, if we think about a classic fantasy, and to a lesser extent, even the Starfinder Solarians, if we think about the Paladins, who are they? They are the knights who command the power of a higher being. In fantasy, they are the conduits of the gods. Okay, so they can bring in the power of the gods and use that to empower their weapons and armor to defend the people or their followers and their ideals. Now, Starfinder does not have gods, but it has the sun, which is basically God, and so they use the power of the sun itself. Or the power of the black hole, either way. That is not the Rangers, though. Now, do the Rangers serve a greater cause? Yes, they do. They are the servants of an ideal, and we love them for that. However, we have seen many, many Rangers, and the Rangers are absolutely nobody special. And I hate to put it that way, but they're really not. They are regular people who are, to be fair, extensively trained, but there is nothing special about them. Which means that you can be a Ranger, but a Ranger is not your class. Which means that you can be a soldier and a Ranger. You can be an operative and a Ranger. You could even be a technomancer and a Ranger. A Ranger is an organization more than it is a profession. And I do think that that actually works better in your favor. It gives you a whole lot more opportunities. Alright, well, I'm already over time, so let's just finish off the last of these. The Vanguard. Change and decay are the only universal constants, and your understanding of these principles makes you nigh unstoppable force of nature, a juggernaut brimming with fundamental energies that allows you to hold the front line of any conflict and turn your own injuries into strength. The entropy within the universe and the level of chaos within any system stand at your disposal, and you channel them into potent combat abilities. To you, the invariable decay of the galaxy is simply a force to shape, control, and even temporarily reverse. The ability to control when and how things change defines your philosophy and power, allowing you to transform blows that should have destroyed you into ticking time bombs of destruction ready to be unleashed. So, you get an entropic pool and an entropic strike and all kinds of different aspects, as well as the ability to mitigate damage as you go. Nobody in Babylon 5 has the ability to control matter and time. And so I feel like this is one of those that's going to go on the no pile. Which brings us to the last one, the Witch Warper. And not drone, because drones are, just drones. The Witch Warper. Most people believe that reality is limited to their physical surroundings. You know the truth, that everything around you is merely a thin veil draped across an infinite tapestry of existence. Your reality is a palimpsest, with all possible worlds and alternate existences at your disposal. Through your magic and force of personality, you can peer into these timelines and pull from them as you see fit, using their dimensional echoes to twist and reshape your own world. Again, if it has to do with time, we're not doing it. There is only one thing that happened in Babylon 5 that involved time, and it is such an outlier that I almost say it was probably a mistake. It does make the story good, I will give you that one, but whenever you introduce time travel, it's generally not good. So Witch Warper is going to be out. And then, like I said, drone is for building a drone. So that is all of the classes in Starfinder, and I think we've got a list. So, biohackers, envoys, maybe. Mechanic, operatives, soldiers, and technomancers. That basically describes everybody. I mean, if I had to list like the main cast, Jeffrey Sinclair and John Sheridan are both soldiers, very, very literally. So is Ivanova. Garibaldi is an operative. So is his chief of security, Zach. Dr. Franklin would be a biohacker. Who else am I missing? Pretty much every single other main character are ambassadors, which puts them all in the envoy category. This covers pretty much everyone. Oh, and Marcus is an operative. Marcus is a ranger. Marcus is absolutely 100% an operative. So, if that's what you were thinking of, there you go. And of course, you know, Galen is a technomancer. Love Galen. Fantastic. But okay, I am over time already, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to wrap it up here. When we get back here next time, we will start working on the races. Now, I already said that I'm going to start trimming this list right here, so some of these are going to disappear. I see no reason, though, why we should not be able to get through most, if not all, races, because there's not too much to do. When we look at races, the only things that we're going to need to fill in is we need to have a size and a type. Well, okay, no. We need to have an ability score modifier, the number of hit points they get a size and type, and then whatever else that we want to give them. So, like this bonus feat and skilled, these are exclusive to humans. These do not necessarily need to exist. We can be able to give these. So, for example, like with Vorlons, they're not going to get a bonus feat. They'll get telepathy at like the highest level. So that's how that's going to work. And that's it. That's all you need for a race. Races should go quickly. So that's what we'll do next time. When we come back here, we are going to do races. And hopefully, I will have a new live background. Something that will not, in fact, get my stream taken off the air. It was a good idea. Emphasis on the was. Anyway, though, if you want to see that, then make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell icon. That way you get notified every time these videos come out. If you know somebody else who's also into Babylon 5 or needs to be into Babylon 5, which is everybody, so share this with everybody. Or if they're into Starfinder, then share this video with them. Otherwise, if you just like me, you like what I'm doing, leave a like on the video. You can leave a comment down below. You can also join the Discord, particularly if you want to play this game with us, because, you know, got to build it first, but then we got to play it. We also just finished Pokemon, so if you want to play Pokemon with us, join the Discord. If you want to play Babylon 5 with us, join the Discord. Go to the Behind the Screen channel. From there, let me know what your availability is. As soon as I have a group of people ready to play, we will start playing. So, I look forward to seeing you there. I look forward to seeing you back here next week, and until then, take care.